Hello everyone, my name is Randy Owenby and I'm going to be telling you all a little bit about Rwanda and specifically the Rwanda Genocide. I did not have a person to interview, however I did have a friend that did a study abroad last semester in Rwanda to finish up her thesis, which was on the Rwandan Genocide and how it affected women that were survivors of sexual assault during that time. So that's kind of what sparked my interest in learning more about Rwanda and the culture and specifically the genocide. So I'm going to go over a little bit of background information first. When Rwanda was first settled, there were two groups, the Tutsi, which were the ones that controlled the most cattle and owned the most cattle, so kind of like the wealthy, and then the Hutus, which were basically comprised of everyone else. When Rwanda became colonized by the Europeans, those two terms took on more of a racially charged role and kind of further segregated Rwanda as far as like somewhat like people having to belong to one group or the other. The Germans were the first to colonize Rwanda, and when they did that, they put the Tutsi in charge, which the Tutsi at that time were less in number, but had more, I guess, European characteristics, such as lighter skin and like stronger, like taller build. So that's one of the reasons why the Germans put them in charge. But after World War I, they became controlled by the Belgians, who one of the most like significant things that they did during their reign, during their time of control, was to instill identity cards, which were cards that were mandatory for everyone who lived in Rwanda to have, and it basically identified whether you were a Tutsi or a Hutu. So it kind of even more like widened the gap of like the racial gap of between the two groups. So when Rwanda was trying to gain independence from Belgium, Belgians kind of caught on to this and saw that the Hutus were the ones that were leading this attempt at independence. So to ward off this getting thrown out of power, they put the Hutus in charge of the Tutsis, and up until that point it had been the exact opposite. So in doing that, they kind of like pretty much stirred the pot and kind of instigated what was to come with the Civil War and specifically the genocide. So onto the genocide, it was sparked by the assassination of the president, who was a Hutu at the time. It's never been confirmed whether the president was assassinated by a Hutu or a Tutsi, but nonetheless it gave way to starting a civil war between the two groups. For those of you that don't know what a genocide is just a term used to identify any large murder of like a mass group of people. So it's usually more than likely racially charged, and one good example of this would be the Holocaust. So now I think it's important up till this point to talk about some of the differences so far in the between the United States and Rwanda. So for one thing, we do not have to carry identity cards explaining what it's on our driver's license, I guess, but it's not mandatory for us to identify based on our race, which I think is something really important because it is something that was prevalent in the United States during slavery and during segregation, that you were identified more by your race and not by anything else. So but I think for the Belgium Rwanda, it's really significant to point out that this was how they determined everything, from their presidency to who had more money to whatever. And I can say that I really don't think that that's the case anymore here. Obviously, racism and institutionalized racism is a huge part of American culture still, but it's also valid to point out that it's not as bad as it used to be, and it's definitely not as bad as this. So I think it's really valid to say that it's something that being discriminated against this strongly for your race is probably something that we are heading our way out of and hopefully will not see again in the future. So back to the genocide, it lasted 100 days. It was instigated by the Hutus in an attempt to kill all the Tutsis. It was literally a mass killing in the sense that Hutus literally went door to door asking for ID cards and killed whoever was Tutsi. They set up roadblocks and killed all whose ID cards said Tutsi, and they even killed their prime minister. So they were really basically out for blood. So along with the killings, one of the more significant factors in the genocide is the fact that thousands and thousands of women were raped, killed, tortured, or kept as sex slaves during this time. When talking to my friend Shay about her thesis, she explained that getting to meet so many women who were survivors of this genocide was a feat in itself, because they are very few in number, first of all, but second of all, a lot of them are very unwilling to talk about their experiences. In comparison with the United States, I mean, it is kind of evident that, like, you know, we have a rape culture, and it's, you know, overtly accepted within, you know, our bigger sense of culture, but it is not this bad. I don't think it will ever get to the point to where thousands of women are literally raped within a 100-day time period. So I don't necessarily think that's something to be proud of, but I think it's a good difference to be noted. So overall, the genocide killed about 800,000 people over a 100-day span, and then after that ended, basically Rwanda was in a devastated, like, economic standpoint, a devastated, basically their whole country was devastated, and at this point, the genocide happened in 1994, so at this point they're still trying to clean up the aftermath of the genocide, but they do have an elected president now, as opposed to being led by either the Hutus or the Tutsis. So another important thing that I think that can be noted is that the government actually was the one that instilled this genocide. They were the ones that enacted this genocide on their own people, which is another difference I think that's very important to take note of, because I truthfully don't foresee our government ever, like, just saying that it's okay to kill, like, all black people or all gay people, as much as some politicians would like to say that. I think it's really safe to say that that would never happen. So I think an important thing to take away from learning about the genocide is that while there are like things happening in the United States, while racism is prevalent, while sexism is prevalent, while there are terms like rape culture that describe the United States, there are opportunities in other places where it is so much worse to do good and to help and to relieve some of the everyday struggles that those people go through, and some of the everyday devastation that they have to live through. So